Level 1. The phone call no parent wants to receive. It happens in the middle of the night. Your mother answers on the second ring, just like she always does. Before you even speak, there's a brief silence on the line. Deep down, she already knows something is wrong. Calls at this hour rarely bring good news. It's your first DUI. No one was injured. Just a damaged car, one night in jail, a citation, and a court date that will likely end with a fine and a mandatory class. Legally, it's one of the least severe versions of this phone call. Emotionally, it doesn't feel small at all. Your mother's first words aren't about the arrest. She doesn't ask what happened. She asks if you're okay. Then she asks again and again. Fear reaches her long before anger ever does. Your father reacts differently. He says very little. Not because he cares less, but because he's already thinking about what needs to happen next. Who can pick you up? Which attorney to call? How to make sure tomorrow doesn't become even worse than today. Within a few weeks, life begins to settle back into its normal rhythm. At family dinner, your sister tries making a joke about what happened. It falls flat. Later, she apologizes. A month later, she makes a smaller joke, and this time everyone laughs. Not because the mistake disappeared, but because enough time has passed for it to become a story instead of a crisis. That's what makes level 1 different. No one is questioning your character. No one is wondering if this is who you've become. To your family, this is still just a mistake, a bad decision, a scary night, something that happened to you, not something that defines you. That kind of forgiveness feels ordinary. The truth is, it's a privilege many families only get while the mistakes are still small.
Level 2. When one mistake becomes a pattern. Everything changes with the second arrest, not because the charges are automatically worse, but because now there's history. The first time was an accident. The second time starts looking like a pattern. Your family can feel the difference before anyone even says it out loud. This time, the charge is drug possession, enough to raise questions, enough to make people wonder whether this is becoming something bigger than a single bad decision. When your mother answers the phone now, she doesn't ask if you're okay. Instead, she asks one simple question. What happened? Her voice is calm, almost clinical. The panic from before has transformed into something heavier. Not less love, just more uncertainty. Your sister stops trying to make everyone laugh. Instead, she starts researching attorneys, treatment centers, recovery programs. She's no longer trying to comfort you. She's trying to help solve a problem she believes is growing. At the time, it can feel like people are trying to control your life. Later, you may realize they're simply trying to keep you from losing it. Family gatherings begin to change. Conversations become quieter. People lower their voices when they think you can't hear them. They're no longer discussing what happened. They're discussing what should happen next. Should they keep lending you money? Should you still babysit your niece? Should you be invited to parties where alcohol is served? No one agrees, and those disagreements create the first invisible cracks inside the family. Small changes begin happening without anyone announcing them. Your father quietly decides he won't co-sign another loan. Your mother learns how to check on you without making it obvious. She asks indirect questions, pays closer attention, listens more carefully than she speaks. Parents often develop this skill out of necessity. They learn how to watch over someone without making that person feel watched. But you notice anyway, because at this level, love and suspicion begin looking remarkably similar. And for the first time, your family isn't just worried about what you've done. They're worried about who you might become.
Level 3. When the damage isn't just yours. Until now, every mistake mostly affected you. The consequences were personal. The disappointment stayed inside the family. But level 3 changes everything. Because now, someone else gets hurt. An assault charge isn't just another entry on your record. It's the moment another person's pain becomes part of your family's story. Whether it's a stranger, an acquaintance, or someone everyone knows, your loved ones are suddenly forced to carry 2 burdens at once: the pain of the victim and the pain of watching someone they love become the person who caused it. That emotional weight is unlike anything they've faced before. Your mother visits you in county jail before the bail hearing. The room is quiet. Not the awkward silence of people searching for words, but the heavy silence of someone trying to process a reality they never imagined. She doesn't ask what happened. She already knows enough. Police reports, witness statements, the news. The facts have already reached her. Instead, she simply looks at you. And behind her eyes, something has changed. For the first time, she's trying to reconcile two versions of the same person. The child she raised and the adult sitting across from her. Loving you hasn't become impossible, but loving you has become far more complicated. Because now, love has to exist alongside fear. Not fear of losing you, but fear of what you might be capable of. That realization is heartbreaking for both of you. Your father handles it differently. On the drive home, he speaks quietly to your sister. He doesn't know you're listening. His voice barely rises above a whisper. I don't know who he is anymore. Those words aren't spoken out of anger. They're spoken out of grief. The grief that comes from watching memories collide with reality. The child he remembers and the person the world now sees no longer feel like the same individual. This is often the point where families begin to divide, not through arguments, but through choices. Some relatives become even more devoted. They attend every court hearing, answer every phone call, visit whenever they can. They refuse to let you face everything alone. Others slowly disappear, not because they hate you, not because they don't care, but because staying close has become emotionally overwhelming. Every visit, every conversation, every reminder feels heavier than they know how to carry. Neither response is necessarily wrong. Both are human. Every family reaches this crossroads differently. How much can you continue supporting someone when their actions have deeply harmed another person? There isn't one universal answer. Some families lean closer. Others step away. Most struggle somewhere in between. Extended relatives begin revealing sides of themselves no one expected. An aunt who rarely called suddenly becomes your most loyal visitor. She writes letters, shows up to hearings, refuses to let you disappear. Meanwhile, a cousin you grew up with, someone who once felt more like a sibling, stops answering your messages. Weeks become months. Months become years. No explanation ever comes, just silence. And eventually, silence becomes its own answer. No one gathers to decide who stays and who leaves. It happens quietly, one choice at a time. One missed phone call, one skipped visit, one unanswered message, until one day, you realize the people still standing beside you are the ones who chose to stay when staying became difficult. That's what makes level 3 so different. The legal consequences matter, but the emotional consequences reshape the family far more deeply. Because this is no longer just about what you did, it's about what everyone else now has to live with.
Level 4. When time becomes the punishment. Up until now, every setback still felt temporary. Every conversation ended with the same question: when will this finally be over? Then the judge announces a number. Not weeks, not months, years. And in that instant, time itself becomes the punishment. A 5-year sentence isn't just something written on legal documents. It's birthdays you'll never attend, family vacations you'll only hear about, holidays spent staring at concrete walls instead of sitting around the dinner table. It's watching your niece go from a little girl to a middle school student without seeing any of it happen in person. For your family, the sentence doesn't only change your future, it changes theirs too. Your parents begin measuring life differently, not by seasons, but by visiting schedules. Your mother memorizes prison regulations the same way she once memorized your school calendar. Visiting hours, dress codes, approved items, rules for phone calls, rules for letters, rules for hugs. She learns every detail, not because she stopped hurting, but because routine becomes the only way to survive years of heartbreak. If she allowed herself to feel every ounce of pain every single day, she'd never make it through the week. So she keeps going, one visit at a time, one phone call at a time, one letter at a time. Your sister brings your niece to visit twice during the first year. The little girl barely understands where she is. She smiles through thick glass, waves with both hands, asks innocent questions no one knows how to answer. After those visits, your sister quietly decides not to bring her back. She never says it's because she's ashamed. She simply says, I don't want prison to become part of her childhood. You understand.
even though understanding doesn't make it hurt any less. Around the second year, something unexpected happens. The emergency fades. The endless meetings with lawyers stop. The late-night family discussions become less frequent. People stop living from crisis to crisis. Instead, they settle into something quieter, something more sustainable. Not because they've accepted what happened, but because human beings eventually adapt to almost anything. Families living through long prison sentences begin to resemble families dealing with chronic illness or military deployments. Life doesn't stop. It reorganizes itself. Love remains. It simply becomes quieter. Not because it's weaker, but because no one has enough emotional energy to live in constant crisis for years. Eventually, even grief develops a routine. There's another reality few people talk about: the financial burden. Every phone call costs money. Every commissary deposit adds up. Every visit requires fuel, hotels, time away from work. Thousands of small expenses slowly become one enormous sacrifice. Most of that weight falls on one person, usually your mother. She rarely complains. She simply pays. Again, and again, and again. The bills become an invisible tax the family carries for years. People outside rarely notice it, but inside the household, everyone feels it. By the end of level 4, the sentence is no longer the hardest part. The hardest part is realizing that life has found a way to continue, even with you missing from it.
Level 5. When the family learns to live without you. There's a moment that almost no one prepares you for. It doesn't happen during the trial. It doesn't happen when the sentence is announced. It happens years later, when life outside your prison walls keeps moving forward without you. At first, everyone promises they'll wait, that nothing will change, that the family will stay exactly the way you left it. But time doesn't make those kinds of promises. Your niece is a teenager now. She doesn't really remember the version of you who played with her when she was little. Instead, she knows you through photographs, through stories, through memories that belong to everyone else. To her, you're less like a person she grew up with, and more like a relative she's heard about. Your sister has built an entirely new routine. She has a career, a family, new responsibilities. She still visits, she still answers your calls, but you're no longer at the center of her everyday life. Not because she stopped loving you, because she had no choice but to keep living. Your mother still writes every week. She never misses. But over time, her letters begin to change. At first, every page is about you, how you're holding up, what your attorney said, when the next hearing is. Years later, the letters describe a different world. Your nephew's baseball game, a neighbor who moved away, the family barbecue you couldn't attend, a birthday party that came and went. Small moments of ordinary life, the kind of moments that quietly become extraordinary when you're no longer there to experience them. With every letter, the distance grows a little larger. Not emotional distance, life distance. A gap measured in experiences instead of miles. One of the hardest realities of a long sentence is this: your family doesn't stop loving you. They simply learn how to function without you, because they have to. Life keeps demanding birthdays, graduations, jobs, school plays, holiday dinners. And eventually, those events no longer pause to acknowledge your absence. Photographs arrive weeks after they were taken. You study every face. Notice how much everyone has changed. Children become adults. Parents grow older. New family members appear. Others are gone. You're still part of the family, but you're experiencing your own life through memories someone else mailed to you. Eventually, you begin organizing those photographs, creating a timeline of moments you never lived, only witnessed after they were already over. That's the quiet tragedy of level 5. You're still loved, but you're slowly becoming a spectator in your own family's story.
Level 6. When there is no finish line. Every level before this held on to one small promise. Eventually, it would end. Eventually, there would be a release date. Eventually, someone could start counting down. Level 6 takes that away. Life without parole changes more than a sentence. It changes the meaning of hope itself. For your family, there is no longer a future reunion to plan for. No countdown calendar, no homecoming, only the slow realization that this is how life will remain. You are still alive, you still write letters, you still make phone calls, but there will never be another Thanksgiving with you sitting at the table. No Christmas morning, no wedding where you walk beside your family, no ordinary Sunday afternoon together. That kind of loss is difficult to describe, because you're grieving someone who isn't gone. Some families respond by becoming even more committed. Every visit becomes sacred, every phone call matters, every birthday card, every holiday letter. They refuse to let the relationship disappear. Their loyalty becomes an act of resistance against the sentence itself. Other families slowly begin pulling away, not because they stopped caring, but because grieving a living person for decades is emotionally exhausting. People aren't built to carry that weight forever. Eventually, survival demands something from them too. Your mother grows older. Her voice changes. The woman who once comforted you now sounds fragile herself. One day, a painful thought enters her mind. She may never see you outside these walls again. She may leave this world before you do. And the last conversation you ever share could happen over a prison phone. Measured by the minute, interrupted by an automated voice, ended by a timer. For many families, that possibility becomes the cruelest part of a life sentence. Not the years, not the prison, but knowing goodbye may happen through a telephone instead of a final embrace. Your siblings often carry another emotion they rarely admit out loud. Relief. Relief that they still have their freedom. Relief that they can go home after every visit. And immediately afterward, guilt. Because feeling grateful for their own freedom somehow feels like betraying yours. It's an emotional contradiction many families never discuss. Not because it isn't real, but because there are some feelings people don't know how to put into words. Level 6 teaches a painful truth. Love doesn't always disappear. Sometimes, it simply learns how to survive impossible circumstances.
Level 7. When the whole world knows your name. Until now, your family's pain has been private. The people who knew were the people closest to you. But everything changes when your case becomes national news. Suddenly, your family isn't just carrying grief. They're carrying public judgment. Your sister walks into work and realizes her coworkers already know, not because she told them, but because they saw your name online. Your mother is no longer introduced simply as herself. She's introduced as the mother of, a title she never asked for, one attached to a story she didn't write. For some families, even their last name becomes a burden. Some change it entirely, not because they're ashamed of who they are, but because they're exhausted by constantly explaining what they had nothing to do with. The internet makes everything harder. Strangers who know nothing about your family suddenly believe they know everything. They judge your parents, they blame your siblings. They speak as if love, heartbreak, disappointment, and loyalty cannot exist at the same time. But families are never that simple. Your mother eventually stops reading comments. Your sister ignores calls from unknown numbers. Both discover a painful truth. The public rarely allows families the dignity of complexity. To outsiders, you're either completely loyal or you've completely abandoned the person you love. Reality exists somewhere in between. Some relatives publicly distance themselves. They give interviews, release statements, end contact. Sometimes because it's what they truly believe. Sometimes because public pressure leaves them feeling they have no other choice. Whether that distance is genuine or simply survival, even they may not know anymore. At this level, the sentence reaches beyond prison walls. It reshapes the lives of people who never committed a crime.
Level 8. Walking back into a world that never stopped. For the few who eventually come home, freedom isn't the ending people imagine. It's the beginning of another unfamiliar journey. The family waiting outside isn't the same family you left behind, because while your life stood still, theirs never did. Children became adults, parents grew older, careers changed, homes were bought and sold, grandchildren were born. Life continued writing chapters without you. Your niece barely remembers the uncle she once knew. Now she has children of her own.
The relationship you hope to pick up where it ended has to be built almost from the beginning. Your sister welcomes you home. The love is real, but so is the awkward silence. Years of separation can't disappear in a single hug. Both of you have changed. Both of you learned how to live without the other. Now you're trying to become family again, as two completely different people. Movies often portray reunions as emotional celebrations. Real life is quieter, more uncertain. Conversations pause, old habits no longer fit, shared memories feel distant. Trust returns slowly, if it returns at all. Some families rebuild something beautiful, not identical to what they once had, but meaningful in its own way. Others discover that too much time has passed, too many milestones were missed, too many versions of each other exist only in memory. Instead of recreating the past, they create something smaller, something gentler, a relationship based on acceptance rather than expectation. Coming home also means returning to a world that has changed. Technology feels unfamiliar, prices are different, language has evolved, even simple family traditions feel strangely new. You spend months, sometimes years, learning how to belong again. Your family helps where they can, but some parts of re-entering the world only you can navigate. Freedom doesn't erase lost time. It simply gives you the chance to decide what comes next.
Level 9. What determines whether a family stays together? After everything, one question remains. Why do some families survive this, while others fall apart? Most people assume the answer is the severity of the crime, but that's rarely the deciding factor. The strongest families share something much deeper. They learn to carry two truths at the same time. They can love the person while grieving the choices that person made. They don't pretend the harm never happened, and they don't pretend love disappeared either. They live with both realities, day after day, year after year, without forcing either one to cancel out the other. Other families reach a different conclusion. For them, remaining close begins to feel impossible. Every visit reopens old wounds. Every phone call reminds them of pain that never fully healed. Eventually, protecting their own peace means stepping away. That decision isn't always made out of anger. Sometimes it's made out of survival. Neither path is universally right. Neither path is universally wrong. Every family arrives at its own answer. Some remain together through unimaginable hardship. Others quietly drift apart, not because they loved less, but because they carried their grief differently. Perhaps that's the hardest lesson of all. There is no perfect way to love someone who has profoundly changed the lives of everyone around them. Every family writes its own ending. Some stories end in reconciliation. Some end in distance. Most end somewhere in between. And maybe that's the truth this entire journey has been leading toward. A single phone call can change a life. But what happens afterward isn't defined only by the crime. It's defined by the choices people make every day after it. The choice to forgive, the choice to hold on, the choice to let go, and sometimes the courage to keep loving someone without ever pretending that what happened didn't matter.